There we go.
Mhm.
Okay, so do you want to start at the beginning and kind of just tell me everything?
Everything from like the day
Yeah.
that, yep. So I was 7 years old and I lived in Sydney at the time. Now I live on the Gold Coast. And I was at my cousin's place in New South Wales. We were going there just for a day of play and catch up, cousin catch up. And they had a huge bushy backyard, lots of native Australian trees, and I have grown up with asthma, so I was born with asthma, and naturally some of those smells trigger my asthma. And so everywhere I have to take my asthma puffer with me. And this day we were playing down in the backyard, and they had my cousins had a huge trampoline as well, and my cousins were obsessed with basketball. And so we were down there playing basketball. Me and my sister were going on the trampoline when, our cousin, we got a bit bored of basketball. And so, yeah, then I started, feeling like, triggered. My asthma was triggered by the wattles and the gums and things like that. And, usually I'll try and breathe through it and see how far I can get on my own. And so I was doing that for a little bit. And then it just got to a point where, I couldn't really concentrate on what was going on. And, as a kid, you don't want to pull yourself away from the play. You kind of want to stay in what's going on. But it got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm just going to go inside and get my asthma puffer. And so I walked up the back stairs to their house, which entered into the kitchen, and I could not find my asthma puffer anywhere. And naturally, if anyone else has had asthma, they know that, once there's a bit of panic, it tends to get worse. And, it's helpful if you can try and stay calm, but obviously it's very difficult. I couldn't locate my puffer. Um, I asked my parents and they said, oh, maybe check the car and whatever. And they were helping me. And then nothing in the car. And then we realized, okay, haven't brought the asthma puffer with us. And, it was my responsibility and I was usually very good at it, but just this day I forgot. And so my auntie, she was helping as well. None of my cousins had asthma, but she thought, oh, maybe someone's left one here or there's something here magically. So we searched their house as well. And by that stage, it was my breathing was becoming a little bit more difficult. And so at the time where we were looking all over the house, my parents were trying to come up with a plan to, okay, what's the plan from here on, and then they were having a discussion about uh, what do we do? Do we call an ambulance? Do we go to the hospital? So where we were was about 40 minutes from the hospital. So we decided, or dad and mum decided that we would drive to the hospital. And my uncle said, yep, I'll lead the way. You follow me. And I remember then it was all systems go. We were like in the car. It was, a bit of an emergency. I was still okay. I was still breathing and it was still fine, but it was, becoming laborious. And then naturally it's just you just feeling the panic and the worry and, naturally when everyone else is panicking around you, you're starting to kind of pick up on that as well. And so we were on the way. I just remember my uncle was speeding. My dad was speeding. I just remember going, through red lights and everything was going pretty fast. And in the front seat, I was doing my best to kind of get into positions where I could kind of lengthen my body and just, get some more air in. And I just remember feeling like my chest was really sore at the front and the back because I was trying to get so much air in. It was very difficult. And yeah, I was just, I was starting to panic, like almost like a cry. And my dad was trying to calm me. He had his hand on my back as he was driving. He's like, it's okay, like stay calm, stay calm. And then it got to a point where it was just all a bit much. I was really struggling for air. And the next thing I remember is I said to my dad, I just feel really tired. I feel really sleepy. I just need to put my head down. Like, I just feel really sleepy. And, when you have asthma, you can barely speak. So I used as little words as I could. And he's like, no, no, he was yelling. And he was yelling in the car saying, no, don't go to sleep. Like, stay with me, stay awake, stay awake. And I was like, I can't, like, I'm tired. I just need to put my head down. And by this point, I could feel his voice was quite distant. I knew he was yelling at the top of his lungs, but his voice was quite distant. And I just could not keep myself awake. And I just remember then putting my head down into the middle console in the car. And, that was the last thing that I remember, was just putting my head down. I just couldn't fight it anymore. And then my dad said that he looked over, my eyes rolled back into my head and, I started foaming at the mouth. Sorry if that's a bit graphic. And so plan B kicked into effect. I don't know exactly how this happened, but there was a correctional facility that was quite close to where we were driving. And my dad and uncle pulled into this place, and he stopped right out the front of the iron gates of this correctional facility. And they were on a break. The inmates were on a break. And he got out, pulled up right out front of the gate, got out of the car, hung on to the wire gates and said, help, I need some help. Like, can anybody help me? Does anybody know CPR? And so one of the inmates said, yes, I know CPR. And so with permission, he was able to come in and perform CPR on me while the ambulance was waiting to get there. And so, yeah, he was supervised and, they had a protocol for that. And so he kind of tried to keep me going until the ambulance got there. The ambulance got there, and then it was just full speed ahead. On the way to the hospital, they were doing the defib on the way to the hospital. And then I end up in the emergency room, of course, straight through, and they're trying to revive me. So going back to the part where I actually fell asleep, I saw that I was back into the backyard of my cousin's place. And I was looking out towards the big bushy backyard, and there was this path for me. And I knew that I had to walk down this path. I was standing before the path. But down both sides of the path were these monsters or demons, lining the path. And to this day, I still don't know what that is. I'm not sure if it was me being scared of the afterlife with the way that I was brought up, which was religious. So obviously, the faith that I was brought up in, we didn't believe in the afterlife. It was like, you either go to heaven or you go to hell. So I don't know if it was something to do with that. I'm not sure why I saw demons. But anyway, I was starting to walk down the path, and they were trying to grab at me from each side. And I was just getting away. So, if you're playing tag and you're just getting away from someone. And as I was walking through, they were becoming further apart. So, they couldn't touch me at one point. And I looked ahead and I could see like a pin of light, at the end of the path. And as I got closer, the light became brighter and brighter. And then all of a sudden I had walked into the light. And so then I enter the light, and I'm in this space of just pure. I know I've heard so many people say this, and I always try and think of like the best way to describe this so that people understand what it feels like. But it was a space of white light that was everything and nothing at the same time. It's pure unconditional love. There's no separation, there's no emotion. It's like everything exists in this space. And I remember feeling like you don't have a form, it's just you're an individual soul, but you're part of something bigger. And like there's all these individual souls, but you're part of something bigger. And I remember being in this space and it was just like, oh, like I'm home. I'm home. And I remember that, like going back, because I didn't tell this story for so many years after it had happened because I didn't know how to process this as being religious. And then, there's a lot to process for a 7-year-old, not to mention the religious factor. And so I kind of put the pieces of this together later in life. So yeah, this space is just like, oh, I'm home. Like, I don't want to leave this space ever. This is amazing. Like, why would anyone want to leave this space? Because in this space, you're not attached to your family, you're not attached to your friends. Well, at least that was my experience. There was just no attachments there. It's just you're in this space where and I don't mean to trigger anyone when I say this, but this was the feeling, is like you are the creator, like you are part of the creator and you can create at will, at thought, everything. It's like this, yeah, this space that I believe that we all go back to. And so at this point, I was saying, I don't want to go back. This is just incredible. And then there was this collective group of voices that said to me, "Oh, you have to go back. Like it's not your time. You have to go back." And I was like, "No, you crazy? Like, no, I'm not going back." And they said, "No, you have to. You have a mission on Earth, and you're going to help a lot of people." And when I was a girl, I used to say, I want to be a doctor. I just want to help a lot of people. I used to say that all the time. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I just know I want to help a lot of people. And so hearing that almost made me go, oh, okay, like I do have a purpose. I feel like there's something for me to go back to. Otherwise, it would have felt pointless. But even though these voices or this collective group of beings spoke to me telepathically and said, you can't go back, it's not your time, I still remember feeling like if I really wanted to push back and say no, I could have. I still remember feeling I still had a choice. It was just that when I heard that I'm going to help a lot of people, that was like, oh, cool. Okay. I have a purpose. I have a mission now. I know that I'm coming back for a specific purpose. And so that was that part of it. And then, come back into my body. But during the another part of it was I was floating above my body. And I don't know exactly how all this, it was like it was happening all simultaneously. So that's why it's like cut up into sections, because it's hard to describe. And so at the same time, I was floating above my body in the emergency room. And I could see, I was looking down. It was like as if you're watching a movie on a big screen, but you're actually inside the movie and you're part of it. And so I was watching all the doctors and the nurses work on my body. There was probably about 15 to 20 of them in the room. I could feel I call it professional panic. It's like they were they were hustling to try and get me back to life. And everyone was talking to each other in code, and I could feel the emotion like, okay, we've got to get this happening. It was like I could read everyone's thoughts, I could feel everything. But I wasn't attached. I knew that I was dead on this hospital bed, but I wasn't attached to coming back to life. It was literally just like watching a movie, a good movie. And so I was like, oh, okay. It was just like, oh, that's interesting. And so by this point, they had been trying for a while to revive me. And one of the doctors went out into the hallway to speak to my dad. And he was basically saying, it's not really looking great. We're trying to bring her back. It's not really looking great. And I remember floating outside into the hallway, hearing exactly what he said. And so it wasn't till after I came to, which was, I fully became conscious about 3 days after the event. So I was sitting up, they brought me back. I was sitting up in the hospital bed, but I was like not responding to anything. They were trying to talk to me. I remember family members coming into the room and speaking to me and who was in front of me, but it was like one of those dreams where you want to respond, but you can't. And so nothing was registering. And I remember them having discussions that, this may not be good looking forward. She may actually have brain damage. And so, yeah, that went on for 3 days. And when I became fully conscious, I recounted every word that this doctor said to my dad in the hallway. And my dad was just like jaw open. And he's a bit of a skeptic. And so he was like, I don't know how you could have known that. Like, there's just no way that you could have known exactly what he said. Like, there's just no way. And so, yeah, so that's kind of the story. Like everything's fine in my brain. Sometimes I've had moments where I've questioned that, but it's like no, yeah, it's quite an eventful story, but something that I've wanted to do for years was to find the staff responsible or the inmate responsible for kind of helping keep me alive. Like, it's something that I've thought about for so long. Like, I just wish that I could find those people and really thank them. But yeah, that's the story. So I'm not sure if you have any follow-up questions to ask about with any of the
Yeah.
experience.
I mean, it's fascinating, and for me, it's always the same, but it's always different, about near-death experiences, because a lot of people experience the tunnel with the pinpoint of light, and you experience a pathway. And
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel like that is just symbolic of something, it's not really a pathway, it's not really a tunnel. It's just the perception, and the changing of that frequency to get from this frequency to that frequency you need
Mm.
to travel, you know. So that's how I'm
Yes,
thinking. The demon part of it, that's interesting though. The way they were grabbing at you. Do
isn't
you think,
it?
yeah, do you think that was maybe like a childhood kind of like I don't know, belief system you had, that
Yeah.
was just manifesting?
Yeah, the older I'm getting and the more I delve into this, the more I'm feeling that's what it was. And like you said,
Mm,
I'm feeling also that, you what we perceive is what we experience. So, the tunnel, like you said, that's something that's familiar for me to get from A to B. But that might be the case. But yeah, I'm really starting to feel that because of my beliefs and maybe subconsciously what I felt like was going on was something unknown and scary. And I know
mm,
that even people that have out of body experiences, which I've had a couple as well, just by meditation, you can experience a whole array of things from your mindset at the time. If you're
mm,
fearful of something, if something's going on, if you have certain belief systems, it's like you will experience what your mind, is projecting. So, yeah, I really feel like that.
mm,
But I'm open to learning more about that if anyone else has a experience or has heard of anyone having that same experience.
mm.
It'd be interesting to kind of do a bit of a study on some of those things, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah, because like you said, when you were on the other side, You knew that manifestation was instant. Like you didn't say that exactly, but that's what it is. The
Yep.
manifestation was instant. So if I think about it, if you had a belief system that you were thinking about or that you brought to the front of your mind, it would manifest instantly.
Mhm.
However, so let's say the demons were something you were manifesting or that you were projecting, they still
Mm.
couldn't get you though, because you were not the vibration that they didn't meet your vibration, so they couldn't reach you. But
Mm.
perceptually, you were like, oh, they are there. They trying to get me. But honestly, they were never going to get you because your vibration was,
Yes.
way different than theirs. That's what I'm thinking. And then the other thing was,
Yeah.
with instant manifestation in spirit, from what I've understood with all the things I've studied and near death experiences, is like
Mhm.
in spirit, it is instant manifestation. Anything
Yep.
and everything you think about instantly you experience. But in the physical, we have process. We have to experience process. So,
Mhm.
it's very interesting and fascinating
Yeah.
because I love how we chose to have a physical experience so that we can experience process, that we can know, okay, for me to have this, these are the steps, or this is the
Yeah.
process. Whereas in spirit, I
Totally.
can see how that can be kind of boring. Like, oh, I wish this done. I wish that done.
Exactly.
It
Exactly.
yeah, you just
I
turn
know.
into something like, okay, well, where's the fun in getting everything I want now? Where's the excitement in that?
Right? And we experience that in this realm. It's like, okay, we've reached this goal now. What's next? Or,
Yeah.
even something like we want to experience skydiving. What does it feel like to fall from a plane and be scared for a minute? What's that? I want to feel that rush. I want to experience what that feels like. And that's all that it is. It's like we come into this reality to remember everything that we've forgotten. And that's an
Yes.
adventure. It really is like an adventure that we're all going on to kind of come back to remembering who we are. Because, as you said, like if we were to live in that space all the time,
Mm,
I don't know, like to me, that's very boring. Like if we were living
yeah.
like that for eternity. I mean, I know in reality, if you were in that space, you probably wouldn't feel bored, but we still do desire to have all these experiences. And, we're feeding back to this field constantly of what's your perception of this or what's your experience in this
Mhm.
field? Like we're constantly receiving from this field this information of what's true and what's not true. So we're all collectively helping each other remember and individually remembering on our own path as well.
Yeah, I love that so much. And it's so interesting for me because it's like we play with this idea of fear, because in spirit
Mm,
we don't have fear. We just know, so there's no fear of the unknown. There's no
yeah.
fear of, oh, what's gonna happen, because you can instantly experience it and then instantly experience something else. And so even with the skydiving or any example you want to use, as humans, we love this idea of fear. We play with it all
Yeah.
the time.
Yep.
But it can also, you can use that to your advantage or to your disadvantage. Because when
Yeah.
you don't know the fears that you are kind of ignoring or that you are kind of trying to run away from, that's when they get you. Like the fear of
Yeah.
death and dying, the fear of the afterlife, fear of God.
Yes.
So we make decisions and we live our lives with these unconscious fears all the time. Everything is
Yep.
informed by these unconscious fears. And so my main purpose and my personal mission in life is to help people release themselves from the fears that control them. Like the
Yep.
fear of God. Why do we need to fear
Mhm.
God? That was such a simple question
Mhm.
I used to ask as a kid, 7 years old. Like,
Yes.
why must I fear God? God created me. If I created a piece of
Mm.
art, I don't want it to fear me.
Mhm.
It was that idea didn't work well when I tried to explain it to others. They were like, "Oh my God, how dare you say that? You need to fear God. You need to be God fearing, or you will go to hell." And I'm like,
Yes.
"Yeah, I don't think God's gonna put me in hell because I'm asking a question or because I'm curious about something." But
Yep.
that's how people think into the adulthood, into their old age. and they
Yep.
live their lives that way, and they lose out on so much that they can experience because of one idea. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
even their idea. Someone gave them that idea
Mm-hmm.
and gave them,
Mm-hmm.
or introduced fear into opposing that idea. So now they
Yes.
stuck. Because yeah, I give you this fear-based idea, but then I also tell you if you question this idea, there'll be a negative fear-based consequence. So now you're stuck.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And after I came out of this experience at 7, I came out with some very profound questions for a 7-year-old of, yeah, like if we learn this in the Bible or this is who, we're told God is, then why is this? Or like there was just a lot of things that didn't quite connect for me. And
Mhm.
I spend a long time trying to find that connection in the religion. And I'm not saying you can't, because I've met some extremely religious people that have found a very deep connection to spirit through that way. It just
Mhm.
wasn't my way. But I don't think that God or source is limited to one view. It's not spirituality or it's not religion. It's like, it's more about how open we can be about who God is, or,
Mhm.
what this is or what we are even. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's very interesting, but yeah, I had to, it was challenging for me as a child to have all these questions on my heart and not be able to have them answered. And that's no one's fault. It's just that, you don't know what you don't know. But
Mhm.
to have those questions not be answered and just be told that you've just got to have faith. I
Mhm.
mean, I couldn't. Like, things need to
Yeah.
make sense for me to have faith, you know? And
Yes.
I think we're moving in a time where people are starting to think more critically, or they're starting to, okay, that doesn't quite make sense there. So I'm just going to go and search for some possible
Mhm.
answers. And we're
Mhm.
just starting to open our minds of what things look like, which it's very important for us to do. So yeah, it's an interesting time.
Yeah, it is. And to have faith, it's not enough. You need to go beyond
Mm,
faith, and then you get into beliefs. Okay, I believe this. But do you really? It's like you touched a place of knowing, and so belief and faith wasn't enough anymore. You needed that
yeah,
knowing because you had that knowing. I
yeah,
know that I'm here. I know that I'm within this light. I know that I'm part of something bigger. I know that I'm not just a body. Like that alone, that knowing that I'm not just a body,
yeah.
that changes everything.
Totally. And, I just, I share your passion with wanting to express to people how we don't need to be afraid of death. I mean, there's a part of it that feels uneasy and scary because we're not going to be physically with our loved ones anymore. But even in this, it's like we have to open our minds about what reality is. It's not just this physical realm. So then we're just encouraged and invited to open our minds into how we can communicate with each other through the different realms, which I know is a challenge for certain religions as well, to open their mind to that, because that's seen as something that's not holy. But and I just find it fascinating how many people are coming out now speaking about their near death experiences. I'm obsessed with listening to these stories too, because in each one I'm like finding a piece of something that feels like a connection for me. But it's important for us to listen to these stories to kind of reframe what we
Mm.
know about death or what we've been told about death. And it's nothing to be scared about. It's just that we just change form,
Yeah,
and it's really
yeah,
that simple. Like, we are energy, and energy never dies. We don't ever really die. It's just this physical structure will shift form on some
yeah,
level, and everything changes all the time, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah. And I've said this before, but like 10 years ago, almost 11 years now, when my grandfather died, so we were extremely close. the closest, and
Mm,
I was a very troubled child. I didn't like my parents. I didn't trust them. I felt like I was a prisoner. I didn't have freedom of speech, I believed, or freedom
mm.
of like expression. I was very much just feeling like a bird trapped in a tiny cage. And when I was with my grandfather, I could be free. I could speak to him. I could, share things without judgment. Like it was just the best. And then he died. And that night, it was an instant switch for me. When he died, that the night that he had died, I couldn't sleep. I was
Mm,
immediately, and we back then there was YouTube, but it wasn't like it is today. There wasn't a whole bunch of content and stuff. So I was
mm,
looking for people online. I was on Facebook in a Facebook group, and I was like speaking to this religious teacher, and it was a Muslim imam type religious teacher. And
mhm.
I sent him a private message, and I said, "Hey, my grandfather just died. Wait, like what happened to him? Where did he go?" And I don't know why I expected him to respond to me because he doesn't know me. And back then, there wasn't that relationship with people who post things and people who, you know,
Yep.
receive that content. It was just like, you know. So
Yep.
that was immediately started searching because yes, I wanted to know where he
Mm,
is and what happened to him, and I refused to accept that he just is dead and that's the end of it.
mhm.
But I was also afraid because I had a lot of fear-based beliefs about heaven and hell, and
Yeah.
you either you have enough good deeds to put you in heaven or you don't, and then you go to hell for all of
Yes.
eternity. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, my grandfather was an amazing person. He did such good things for his community. He was very much respected and loved by everyone who knew him. He was the best. But I'm
Mm,
thinking, I don't know what he was doing in his private life, in his private mind. What if he was a bad guy and he went to
yeah.
hell? Because if he did, I definitely am too. I'm nowhere as good as he was. So I'm definitely going to hell. So I'm more afraid for me at this point than I am for him.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I need to figure this thing out. I will not be
Yeah.
able to live my life without knowing. And it was difficult because I only the near death experience book that changed everything for me. I only found that book like I don't know, a couple months later. So I was on this frantic journey of just going insane, and I was, depressed, and I was anxious, and I was suicidal, and I was going through all of these things. I found this book, and this woman is like, "Oh, I died, and there was a life review and unconditional love, and God is not judging me." And I'm like, "What?
Yes.
What is this?" And so I was just hooked, because not only did it help me with my own healing, but I was like, "Whoa, my life could have been so much different if I was still holding on to those fear-based beliefs as if they were
Yeah.
true, and then making
Mhm.
decisions and living my life that way. Imagine all the other people, and I see it in people I know. I see how they live their life, thinking that they are
Mhm.
religious and doing good things, but
Mhm.
really, what you are doing is living with fear-based beliefs that are driving your decision making.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because you don't want to preach on people and tell them what they should do, this and that. But there is something different about you when you know what you know and you live that way.
Mm.
They are just
Mhm.
like, how are you so peaceful? How are you not freaked out about this? How are you so? And it's just
Yeah.
like, I just know what I know, and you are allowed to know what you know. And if
Yeah.
you want a different perspective, I've, contributed to some of these books, and you can read more about these concepts, and maybe it will open up something for you where you can go
Mhm.
deeper,
Mhm.
so it's a door that opens up, that gives them permission, because I feel like
Mhm.
a lot of them are just looking for permission to believe something different or allowed to look at something different. um
Mhm.
and I shared the story with you guys when I was young. I think I was 6 or 7, and in my religious school, um, I said to the teacher, "Oh, the Quran. She's teaching us about the Quran, and this is what it says." And I said, "Well, what does the Bible say, and what does this other book say, the Torah?"
Mhm.
And she was like, "Oh, you're not allowed to read those other books. If you do, your head will turn into the head of a pig." And I was freaked out. I don't want to be a 7-year-old walking around with a pig head, and And I held on to that belief, if as ridiculous as it was, I held on to that belief
Mhm.
until my grandfather died, until I was about
Yeah.
21, 22 years old. Then
Mm.
only did I give myself permission to look into other things. And
Yeah.
even then, it was cautious. It was one little
Yeah.
toe in the water. And then it's
Yes.
like, oh, I'm not transforming into a pig. It's okay.
Yeah.
I can go deeper. Really, it was,
I know.
yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
feel that fear, like that fear. It's like, on some level that's it can't be true, but then on another level, you're like, well, what if it is? And
what
I'm
if it
just
is?
questioning this thing and I'm wrong? And that
Mm-hmm.
I had that question for so long about even hell. Even though I had this experience, I kind of went through this journey um, where I became an adult and I had left the church, a long time ago, but I became an adult and I was like, okay, I need to see for myself and choose for myself here. Is there something here for me? So I really went into it. I did the study, I did everything, that we should do. And I really spent a lot of time like searching for the answers and really doing it properly. And I ended up coming up with the same questions and the same feeling like this can't be it. Like, if God's unconditionally loving, why would he set you up for failure? To go and sin and like,
Mm,
I know how I feel about my own children. I love them unconditionally and there is nothing they could do to make me stop loving them or for me to
mhm,
condemn them. And if
yeah.
I'm so imperfect and I can feel that level of love, then I couldn't understand why that would be a God that would do that to
Mhm,
his own creations. Like
yeah.
that was just one of the questions that I had. So, it's led me on a really beautiful path of questioning and the more that I've, come into my own faith and beliefs, it's like everything's within, can be
Mm,
found within. And, it's a beautiful journey. And I know like I even have discussions with some of my religious friends and we kind of have the same mindsets and views about a lot of things. It's just framed in a different way. So if they're quite open as well, you can have some beautiful discussions where it's like, I went through my time where I was condemning the church and religion proper, but I think there's a place for it for some people.
mm,
And I just think that, there's more than one path to get to the same outcomes or the same realizations.
yeah,
Um, Maybe not fully and completely, but who knows? I don't know. I
yeah.
can only speak for the path that I've walked. Yeah, so it's been an awesome journey to kind of, yeah, just get to know and explore what that vastness was, what that space is, where we go, where we come from, who we are as creators. Because, I felt that it's like we can
Yeah.
create at will and speak and thought. And this is, oh, we have to be so careful with what we say, what we think.
Yes.
What we speak is like I had this experience once where I had a healing session with a dear friend of mine, and I sat up and I saw myself speaking these words, and it was like they were creating form. I could see where they were landing. I could see where my words were landing. It was like this physical reality. And on a whole other level, I understood, whoa, I really have to be so careful with what I say about
Mm,
myself, about others, about this reality, what we're creating, even at this time where there's heavy political and,
mhm.
just like division. It's like we have to be so careful with what we think and what we say because we are creating literally in every moment. Sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but it was just, coming out.
No, that's perfect because it's exactly as you say. We don't understand the importance of what we say because we don't see it. We don't
Yeah.
see our vibration. We don't see ourselves emanating this frequency. Because if we
Yeah.
could see it, we would be like, "Ooh, I don't want to be near that guy," or
Yes.
someone like, "Oh, I want to have a good vibration because I want to attract something good." So we
Yeah.
don't see it. And because there's this time lag because of the process,
Mhm.
we only experience the effects of it after a while,
Yeah.
because you can be in a positive vibration and you have to wait for the process, you have to wait for that vibration to become, how can I say, like, your dominant vibration before you start seeing the results of that. And the same with negative,
Mhm.
I can
Mhm.
decide to become a bad person right now. It will only be in a couple weeks maybe that I'll actually see the manifestations of that.
Yeah.
And it's the same with positive. But there was something you said about inclusion. Religion is very much exclusive, which I don't like. If it was
Mhm.
inclusive and saying, hey, let's look
Yep.
at everyone, let's look at everyone and what they believe in, just make it a big pot, add everything, all your beliefs to this pot, let everyone decide what they choose and what they want to eat from
Yes.
you, then they can
Yep.
decide. And
Mhm.
that the book that I'm working on next, not the book we're working on now, but the one after, The Ways to God, that's exactly what it is. It's saying,
Yeah.
here are all multiple diverse perspectives. Make up your own mind. No one is
Yep.
telling you what you should or shouldn't believe, but here are other options if you don't like what you are currently being served. Like, you don't have to just eat
Exactly.
that. And
That's right.
there was something else you said that I wanted to tell you about. Man, my memory. Ah, it's fine. It will come back to me.
It'll come back. And it's the
Yeah, there
same
was.
as thoughts, I have seen people's unconscious beliefs the same way. So as I saw the physical threads of my words, I've seen people's thoughts that were their own limiting beliefs or their own insecurities to
Mm,
another. That is so powerful and that affects people. It's like we're all so connected. And if you are not working on your own stuff, you are directly affecting that person. If you have a bit of envy or a bit of this or a bit of that, it's like, this is a time where we have to be so responsible for what we are
mm,
creating from ourselves. Like this is huge. It's a massive responsibility that we're being called to be
mm,
so aware of what we're creating and speaking and thinking in every moment because we will be shown, and this is the thing, it's like I like what you said before about we don't go to this place where God judges us. It's actually
mm,
us that judges our own journey and goes, okay, how did I
mm,
go in that lifetime? Yeah, I did that kind of right, but I would like to improve on that. And then we go and choose the
mm.
next lifetime according to what our soul wanted to learn. But it's only ourself that places that judgment on how we think we did, and the life
Mhm.
review is shown to us, but it's really like there's no good or bad. It's just like, well, if you messed up a bit, then you just have to learn that lesson in a different way or come back and do it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we just have to be so careful, and it's just something I'm always talking about is just being really responsible for your own limiting beliefs, as you mentioned before, your own fears, your own insecurities and projections towards others.
Yes.
We will be shown how that will affect other people when the more aware you become. And even if you leave this realm, you are shown things like that and how intricate,
Yeah.
and if you feel like there's someone you need to apologize to, then go do it. Like,
Yeah.
that's just sealing things off for yourself. Um, if things have not left my mind of something that I didn't like the way I handled something, I've gone to that person and said, I'm really sorry, like I didn't
Mhm.
mean to make you, I can see now how that may have made you feel. I've been through that experience. I just wanted to apologize. So
Mm.
yeah, it's just something to be aware of to tie up those things, and then you can like learn these lessons in real time and remove a lot of the I don't really like to call it karma, but remove a lot of the, I'll use it for the sake of this podcast because I
Yeah.
can't think of another word at the time, but you can really rewrite your karma in real time if you're being
Yeah.
super responsible for what you're creating here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's a huge element of responsibility. And I see that as well as being a mother. We are mothers. And
Yes.
being responsible for your own limiting beliefs, because I don't want to give my limiting beliefs to my kid. She has her own limiting beliefs she needs to work out and deal with. And
Yeah.
I will be there to guide her and support her. But I won't be able to do that efficiently if I myself have not dealt with my own. Because
Yeah.
there will come a time and she'll be like, why am I creating this? Why does my life suck? Why this? Why that? If I'm in the same point of view and saying, well, I don't know, my life sucks too, then I'm of no help. But if I say, hey, I've learned through my own experience that I create everything, good and bad.
Yeah.
So that means it's true for you too. So you need
Yeah.
to ask yourself, what do I need to believe about myself in order to create this experience? Oh, I believe I'm
Hmm.
not good enough. I believe that, I'm not going to be smart enough. I believe I'm not beautiful enough. I believe I'm not worthy, this, that, whatever. Now you know. Now you can deal with those things. Okay, well, why do I believe this? Is it actually true? How do I know this?
Hmm.
And then you can unravel all of that turmoil, which causes the anxiety. And I just remembered what I was going to say. So you were talking about unconditional love. And the thing
Hmm.
is, I feel like humans, we define everything in a way that is contradictory. Like, for
Mm.
example, we will say something like inflation, right? Just a dumb example. So, inflation, we use this word inflation. Inflation means to make something bigger. Yet it means when our money gets smaller. No wonder we are all having these mindset issues around money because of the way we define things. And it's
Mm.
the same with God. We have this definition of God, which is nowhere near. So when someone says God, you are immediately triggered by your connotations of that
Yes.
word and your understanding, which is not even close to what it actually is. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
in physical human form we can speak the words of what God actually is. Like,
No.
it's unfathomable, it's unspeakable.
Mhm.
We don't have the capacity, the vocab, none of that.
Mhm.
And so, even unconditional love, what does it mean? It means that no matter what, I will always love you. So, whether you
Mm.
make good decisions, bad decisions, whether you are a good person, bad person, whether you kill people or heal people, whatever it may be, you are so loved and accepted by God. If I was God, right? That
Mhm.
would what it would mean. And so we feel like unconditional love means only good things, because that,
Yes.
which is not true, which is not
No.
true. So we think, oh, because there's wars and because there's disease and poverty, God is not loving these people unconditionally. No, he is loving them unconditionally by
Mhm.
allowing them to experience that, because that is
Yeah.
what they have chosen with their actions, with
Mhm.
their thoughts, with their whatever. And people don't like to talk about it because it seems
I
insensitive.
know.
How dare you say that this person is
Yeah.
suffering because they chose it? Well, burn me at the stake if you want. I reserve my right to free speech. It's my
Yeah.
opinion. You can have your own
Mhm.
opinion, and that's okay. I just feel like God gives us all the opportunity to
Yeah.
experience what we want. He even gives us the opportunity to not believe in Him if we choose that. That is
Yeah.
unconditional love. By saying, I'm
It
going to love
is
you whether you believe me or not, whether you understand it or whether you this or that. That is
yeah,
unconditional. Is it not?
very
I
much
don't know.
so. Yeah, it is. And you're 100% right. I love everything that you said. Um, and even with my own children, I'm, you know, speaking about things not in a spiritual term. It's just how can you question things? How can you think openly about this? What feels true for you? Or how many
Mm,
paths can you, or how many perceptions can you explore to make up your mind about something?
mhm,
But yeah, with unconditional love, it's like even with people that you may have fallen out from, It may take some time for you to get through the hurt or the disappointment or the frustration or anger, but you should always try and come to a place where you are still loving them and you
Mm-hmm.
can love them from a distance. And I don't say this as like oh, this is just love and light, um, kind of pie in the sky stuff. This is stuff that I've directly experienced because I know that if I keep my heart open, I'm able to experience more. I'm able to manifest more. I'm able to stay aware of my own, stuff more. And so we do have to, part of our work is to become responsible for loving people unconditionally because, everyone's a child of the universe or a child of God.
Oh yeah.
Even
Oh yeah.
whether they're the biggest criminals in the world, like
Oh
they
yeah.
are still a child of God and they have
Oh yeah.
lost their way. And they've
Yeah.
lost their way because they were taught or brought up in a certain way. So there's a level where you can kind of hold compassion for them and their
Mm-hmm.
circumstances. And you can,
Mm-hmm.
I really don't agree with what you're doing. It's not good,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
for humanity, but I can still be in a place where I still love you. Like if you turned around tomorrow and said, I've been doing all this wrongdoing, I want to, stop, and you showed them love and they accepted it. It's like, how beautiful. I've seen
Mm-hmm.
things like that, and it's beautiful how people can turn around and some of them say, I've never felt that. I've never heard those words from anyone before.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, this is it. It's like, how can you love unconditionally, literally,
Yeah.
humanity and everybody? But you don't have to condone what they do. It's just like, it can be kind of
Yeah.
separate. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It makes sense. And another perspective of that is saying, here is somebody reflecting to you this type of behavior and the consequences thereof. So it gives you an opportunity to make other decisions without having to necessarily walk that specific path.
Yeah.
So, and that's how I like to see everything. Like everyone is making choices that I can be like, oh, if I make that choice, I can have a similar consequence. I like that.
Mhm.
That one's making that choice. Ooh, I don't like that consequence. I think I'll choose something else. It's about
Yeah.
preference. It's not about excluding what we don't like because then we're invalidating it, and
Hmm.
everything is from God. We cannot invalidate anything that is from God. So
Yes.
you can prefer things. A preference is fine. That's what makes you you. You prefer
Hmm.
this group of stuff, and I prefer this group of stuff. That's what
Hmm.
makes us different. But
Hmm.
we can't, I'm not going to say, oh, Natasha, you believe that. Therefore, I'm not going to validate it. I don't believe it. It's bad. It's this, it's that, whatever. Now I'm just projecting my insecurities of,
Yes.
because if you truly believe in the power of what you believe in, you don't have to
Hmm.
enforce it on anyone else. It's,
Exactly.
it's only when you don't believe it that you feel like you need to force someone else, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. And, to what you just said then was I just made a video about on YouTube about how we're all canceling each other, and censoring each other. We're talking about big censorship, but we're actually doing it to each other every time we don't allow someone to speak because we have a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
It's like you're conditionally loving someone when you only like them because you agree with what they say. Or
Yes.
or even if it's like I see this all the time too. It's like someone might agree with 95% of, just for example, what I would say. And then I say the other 5% they don't agree. They're like, oh, I'm unsubscribing. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. Can't listen
Mm-hmm.
to you anymore. It's like, okay, well, if you're not getting value from me, then please unsubscribe. But if there's something still there, like don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, we're still learning. We're still learning how to hold all perceptions. And this is part of this too, is like God holds all perceptions.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything as a possibility and not judging any of it. It's literally just experience. And
Yeah.
so, for the what I've learned and what I was shown by Mary Magdalene actually is, the way to ascension or to evolution is through the heart constantly.
Mm,
And I talk about a lot through my work. I talk about seeing through the eyes of the heart, hearing through the ears of the heart, like living through the heart, because that heart space is your portal to divinity, to
mm,
unconditional love. And if we're continuously opening that up and keeping it open and forgiving and having compassion and unconditionally loving, and, it's not always easy, it's not always rainbows, it's messy sometimes. But if we're continuously working on that, then each time we're doing that, we're coming back home to our true nature of who we are. So
yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to share that because it's something that I've directly experienced more and more. It's like the more I keep my heart open, the more I let go of my projections and my hurts and all of that, I become more connected to who I am and the universe, and magical things happen. It's like, it's also a portal of manifestation. So, because you're coming into the oneness of what we are and what this is. So, yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
a difficult thing to explain, but I hope that made sense.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And we like to say, you know, things, but honestly, if you really just think about it a little bit, it's kind of common sense. It
Yeah.
feels like common sense to me at this point, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like anyone who is strongly opposing anyone else, whatever their belief
Mhm.
system may be, I just feel like, just relax a little bit, don't
Yeah.
let your triggers don't let your triggers become you,
Yes.
where you are so just on edge all the time. Someone cannot
Yeah.
even look at you and you attacking. And I'm seeing this a lot. Like my social media page, like my YouTube feed, it's full of like stuff, like people just attacking other people for things that
I
they're
know.
saying or that they're believing. And I'm like, chill out, you guys. We
Yeah.
are all human. Nobody cares really about what you're doing or whatever. It's just like, don't if no one is bothering you, don't go look for to
Yeah.
bother them, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is political related because I am
Mhm.
obsessed with the politics this year. Like, ooh, it is just so juicy.
Spicy.
I am telling you. And a lot of my opinions, I'm very vocal about my opinions with people in my life, but I
Yep.
have to be careful because the
Yeah.
reality is when I say things online or in public platforms, I can possibly be attacked. I can be, get all kinds of things coming to me. And for that reason, I just say, things privately. But
Yep. Yeah.
everything, even like this whole Diddy situation and all of that stuff, my entire belief system has changed, even considering like what does success mean to me? Because when
Yep.
I was a kid, we didn't have like YouTube. Like I grew up in the 90s. I was, born in mid 90s. So early 2000s, we see all these stars and they're living these lives and we're like, oh,
Yes.
that is what success is. And yeah. And then you keep those ideas. You just like the pig head
Mhm.
situation, you keep it.
Yeah.
And now all of them are being exposed for horrible things. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, so this is not what success is. I need to redefine my situation now
Yep.
because I'm holding on to things here. I'm feeling
Yep.
uncomfortable. Why? Because I resonated with that at some point in my life. And now I'm trying to detach because I don't believe in these things anymore. But
Mhm.
it's not to say, like you said, the action that person did doesn't make them a bad person or an unworthy
Yeah.
person or not worthy of love. You did a bad action, that's between you and God. And
Yeah.
you will
Exactly.
figure that out when you get to your life review. You will deal with that. So for me, I'm fine with that, but I don't have to choose or I can prefer something else, and that's fine too.
Mhm.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
that you're a bad person or this or that. So it's like a very fine line between judging someone and
Mm.
preferring something else, you know?
Yeah. And it's like this is where I remember in the Bible it was talking about I'm not going to do say this right, but it's like talking about the plank in your own eye. Like don't basically like don't judge someone else when and you can't. I mean, yes, there's a scale of crimes, but at the end of the day, it's like I don't know, I'm trying to say something and it's not coming out right, but we all do stuff that falls short,
Yeah.
basically. And so, to sit here and go, "Oh, you're, like this, that, and the other," like we're doing that all the time, every day, whether we're not being nice to someone at the supermarket or, it's like we're doing stuff like that to each other all day anyway.
Oh yeah.
And it's just, yeah, it's just this is a great time for self-reflection for humanity is like, okay, this person's doing this, but they're only in the public arena. Like average people do stuff like this daily, it's just that their life isn't on show in the public arena. So it's like, just bring it back to the self. Like, where can
Yeah.
I just improve that 1% every day? And yes, things should be brought to justice. And yeah, I also have, my views politically, but at the end of the day, I just want what's right for humanity and just how we
Yeah.
can perceive things and create things. And it's like, let's just wait and see. What if it's not as bad as what people are saying? Or, if it is, then we'll figure it out. Like it's just
Yeah.
we can
Yeah. Like,
only wait and
just,
see. Like we don't
yeah,
know, so there's no point in getting so uptight about it if we don't
exactly.
actually know how this is going to pan out.
Exactly, exactly. And to a certain extent, we kind of do because we did have a previous situation where, so there is something where we can look to, and that wasn't bad at all, actually. I
Yeah,
think it's more,
exactly.
you know what? Let me just say what it is. People are mad at Trump, and I don't know
Yep.
why. And
Yes.
it's like the thing is, he loves his country, he loves his people, and if
Mm,
you've got personal beef with him, keep that separate from
yep.
actually running a country. Like that is
Yeah.
different than having personal beef with someone, like you need to be able to separate and understand the differences between things. But anyway, I think
True.
we will leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just I think sometimes we think that we know what the other side looks like, or we think that
Mm,
the other side may be good, but do we actually know that?
yeah,
Like,
you don't know,
do
we
we
don't know
really
anything.
know? Do we really know?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Like, we're not living in that house or those houses.
Hmm.
It's like we don't really know. So it's like,
Yeah.
let's just see what happens. But, there's
Yeah.
things that need to improve. And all we can hope for is like we all want the same outcome. It's just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
we all want peace and we all want things to stop and the economy to get better. But yeah, it's just interesting. And I think it's not to look at this side or that side. It's like, how can we all come together and actually just work on the solutions that of the things that need to actually be fixed?
I think so too. I think so too. And then, I actually have so many more things I want to discuss with you. But maybe we can get together next week again and we can
Yeah,
continue our conversation.
yeah, for
Because
sure.
yeah, there's so much more that I want to say, but I
Yeah.
gotta go.
No, that's
So
all good. Yeah, there's a lot to be reperceived around this whole situation and
yeah.
it's funny because I'll just say one last thing is like we've really talked about mainstream media for so long about how untruthful they are or slanted they are and then all of a sudden everyone's believing it,
Yeah.
about this figure and I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, the contradictions are incredible.
Yeah.
And I still wanted to get to your chapter in the book and all that. We didn't even get to all of that. But I think
Oh,
we'll talk about it in our next conversation. Maybe we could get together next week, talk a
yep.
bit more.
Sounds good. Yeah,
I
sounds
would
good.
love
Yeah,
that.
no worries. Yeah, just let me know. All good. Lovely to chat as
Wonderful.
all.
Yes. So you have a
Always
wonderful, wonderful
productive
day.
conversations.
Oh,
Yeah,
you were I
you
think it's my
too.
Wi-Fi. Can you hear me? You can hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I hope you
You
have a
too.
wonderful day. Is it
You
afternoon for
too.
you? It's almost nighttime?
It's night time now, so it's
Oh.
8:40 p.m.
Oh, okay. It's only 12:40 for me, PM in the
Okay.
afternoon. So, yeah.
Well,
Gotta pick up the
put
kiddo
in
from
the.
school.
Did you hear from Sean?
I hold on. Uh
Sorry.